Folks, welcome to Podcast Storm. Okay, sorry, we're professionals. Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast The Storm, with social awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello, folks. Happy Cinco de Mayo for those that are currently probably drunk off their asses.
And I am your host, last time will want to be the brains about pop culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
I am doing mostly okay. On the recommendation of a friend of mine, I watched Hazbin Hotel, and I'm still working my way through the Pact audiobook. So it's been a mostly eventful week. Also, my brother got a new job, and he is currently driving out to Wyoming. He's supposed to get there at some point tonight, and I plan to talk to him as soon as he's probably going to be there, because he's been driving since Friday.
Right. And well, I won't say that we have a packed week, because only after Dalton and I finalized things did everything this week start to come. So that will be mostly next week.
The world was just like, do you want news? Well, then here's all the news.
Right. However, since we had a spot open, or we believed we did, we are going to try. I don't know if we're going to finish it. Might not. Might maybe. But we are going to continue reading the Rewriting Ripley article. In plain sight, how white supremacy, misogyny, and hatred targeted a Star Wars sequel trilogy.
And of course, here is the point at which the narrator would put the caption. It didn't, but yes, we are returning to the scene of our white whale, as we usually do when there's open air on the show. At least until we have it done. And as soon as we have it done, I'm breaking out the absinthe.
Right, and since we left off, we are almost done. But we left off on a area, like a new part of it, so we'll start there, because I don't really think we need to read anything, so we have context.
Yeah. Intro.
Mission completed. The Rise of Skywalker retcons The Last Jedi. In December 2019, after 4 years of highly coordinated racist and sexist hate against the trilogy, The Rise of Skywalker was released in theaters and noticeably retconned Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. Now, to be fully honest, Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi retconned a lot of, not retconned, but threw away a lot of the ideas that J.J. Abrams both set up and had planned, because he wrote a full trilogy. out.
It set off a depth charge in the narrative flow of the story.
Mhm.
And not only was it stupid on its face, it also made a bunch of the fan base commit a mutiny. There was no racism or sexism involved, or at least very little. But that's, we've been beating that particular dead horse for basically this entire article. This guy does not know how things ought to be defined, and presupposes a bunch of shit that does not make any fucking sense. But that being said, when you get yourself an avant-garde director who self-evidently hates the IP he's working on and intentionally tries to subvert it, and thereby nukes the trilogy as it was being set up, no surprise that you then have to get the guy who founded the trilogy back to try and fix it. Now, mind you, this could have been solved by just letting JJ have the trilogy all to himself, as was the original plan. I don't know why someone got it in their head that they should hire Rian Johnson to work in a franchise that he does not like and wanted to actively subvert, but someone did. And for all that Rise of Skywalker is a bad movie, and it is. My justification as to why it is a bad movie, or my excuse as to why it's a bad movie, is because JJ started to set shit up in Force Awakens. Rian Johnson unwrote the vast majority of it in the worst possible way. And then Disney came a scrambling back to JJ and went, JJ, help us, he nuked the fan base. Help us put things back on track. And so rather than being able to write one movie, as was the original plan, JJ basically had to cram both of the sequels that he would have made into one movie, and also retcon a bunch of shit that fucking shit.
Last
The
Jedi.
name of thank you.
How?
That Last Jedi nuked.
I'm never gonna let you live that down. That you literally forgot.
I'm sorry. I try not to dwell on the existence of that fucking thing. So it very rarely, if ever, sticks in my head. But in any case, the point being, the reason it retconned a bunch of shit has nothing to do with racism or sexism. In fact, Rey was still the main character in Rise of Skywalker, and all of the pseudo social justice stuff was still there. What it did was unpostmodernize it, unsubvert it, or at least it tried to. Which again, a large part of the reason why Rise of Skywalker was bad is because rather than simply give JJ access to the full trilogy he wanted, you undid most of the groundwork he was laying, and then having been undone, he had to redo a bunch of it. So you ended up with two movies worth of content jammed into one movie's worth of space. No wonder it wasn't going to end up well. Anyway, moving on.
Right. All right. Before giving examples, it is important to note that the final installment of the Skywalker saga is highly likely not any kind of malicious attack against progressive politics, nor was it some plot to appease white supremacists and anti-feminists.
Because in both cases, neither of these forces are particularly that important to begin with. Because whether you like it or not, white supremacists are not equivalent to anti-feminists, and whether you like it or not, white supremacists aren't a meaningful contribution to society. I.e., honest-to-goodness white supremacists or Nazis are vanishingly rare irrelevancies in the grand scheme of things. There is no great nascent fascist uprising in the midst. There is no great revivification of Hitler. There is no great, resurrection of Reichs. you're just flabbergasted by the fact that people who disagree with you are also not immoral, illegitimate bastards. You want to believe that the only way someone could disagree with you, possibly, is if they were immoral or morally irrelevant bastards. But it just ain't so. People can disagree with you for legitimate reasons. And you can't just box them all in with all the morally invalid scum of the earth, no matter how much you want to. Moving on.
All right. Additionally, the vast majority of movie-going audiences will not have the faintest idea of the hate that occurred within Star Wars fandom since the release of The Last Jedi. Enjoying the film
Because there was no hate
Hold
to
on.
speak of, you moron.
Done.
Sorry.
Enjoying the film does not in any way mean that one agrees with white supremacists, alt-right reactionaries, and misogynists. However, that doesn't change the fact that plot points that ended up in the film can be tied back to alt-right conversations on YouTube.
No, it very much does change those things, because as I have tried, apparently in vain, to distill unto you in this entire commentary on this article, of which there are like 20 odd some segments now, the alt-right is not the same.
Sorry, I was going to look up how many we have, but keep going. Mention it later.
Yeah, the alt-right is not in any way the same or in any way associated with, in a meaningful way, the anti-SJW movement, the anti-feminist movement, the men's rights advocacy movement, etc., ad nauseum. These things are not equivalent things, and you keep using the term alt-right, which has a very specific definition of an online subset of softcore white supremacists headed by people like Richard Spencer and J.F. Garraby, who essentially in opposition to social justice based identity politics, started advocating for white identity politics. That's not the same thing as people who oppose identity politics full stop, or who oppose social justice as an ideology, or who oppose postmodern deconstructionalism, critical theory, or the Frankfurt School mentality of neo-Hegelianism, etc., or even simply people who prioritize the meritocracy of their fandom over politics in general. These aren't the same thing. You keep using the term alt-right in ways in which it is simply not applicable, because you want to equivocate people who oppose the ideology of social justice and or neo-Hegelianism and or the Frankfurt School mentality of postmodern deconstructionalism with people who are white supremacists. That equivocation, however, is erroneous. It is an erroneous conflation of your own fabrication and your own moral fervor. A misplaced moral fervor, because you want to believe that the only way someone could disagree with you is if they were immoral or invalid or subhuman in some sense. But it is not so. People are capable, even left-wing people are capable of telling social justice in no uncertain terms to go fuck itself without being traditionalist or right-wing or fascist or Nazi or white supremacist or whatsoever the fuck else you want to put. Because just like you can be on the right wing of politics without being a moralistic, family values, authoritarian tradcon, so too you can be left wing and oppose neo-Hegelianism, social justice, DEI, ESG, etc. Because in both cases, these are specifically the moralistic authoritarian wings of their respective wings of politics. And you don't have to be right wing to oppose social justice. You simply have to be a libertarianly minded, non authoritarian, or populist. As in, you can be populist instead of authoritarian, just to be clear. Because I actually consider populism to be a good thing. And by the way, while we're at it, this notion that democracy is good but populism bad is a complete philosophical farce, because populist and demos are essentially the same word in Latin and Greek respectively. So in no sensible version of democracy can you not be populist. Like, there is no such thing as a non-populist democracy if we're actually being literal with our terminology here. To be democratic is to be populist, and to be populist is to be democratic. These are equivalent things. And trying to make some version of democracy focused on elitism is farcical. Especially if you throw in normative institutionalism on top of it. Moving on, though.
All right. Some moments in the film that clearly included fan theories were inconsequential and were not taken pure rights basis, such as Holdall maneuver, a phrase used on Reddit, or the when Luke raises the X-wing. Is the X-wing from the water in Octo. The who was deep within Star Wars fandom, 2016 can tell you how often they heard that fan favorite expectation. It was said a lot. Okay.
All you're doing in this particular section of this article is disproving your entire argument up until this point. Because the reason why those things are not purely white supremacist or whatever the fuck is because you conflated people who prioritize things like meritocracy and fandom and the sanctity of the IP over politics, morality, philosophy, and social justice. You conflated those things with white supremacy. Erroneously, as I have stressed repeatedly and in great detail every time you've done it, or every time I've caught you doing it. And now, the reason why you are able to make the distinction between the fandom and quote unquote white supremacy when it suits you is because whether you like it or not, even you cannot refuse to acknowledge the fact that your conflation, your entire fucking spider web design dissertation here is a farce, is a fabrication, is a fallacy, is a falsehood. And so you are basically having to undo your own conflation because not even you can actually deal with the consequences of your own beliefs. But the thing is, you're right. These things can all be the case without white supremacy or hatred or blah, because every aspect of this article can reasonably be shown to be related to something other than white supremacy, the alt-right hatred, or blah. Which I have tried my damnedest to remind you of at every turn prior in this article. But it's nice to know that not even you can fully commit to your own bullshit in this regard. Because it simply is not true. The alt-right is not equivalent to anti-social justice. It's not even correct to say that being opposed to social justice makes you necessarily conservative or even right-wing libertarian. You can be left-wing and still hate social justice, again, in the same way that you can be right-wing and still oppose authoritarian moralistic family values tradconism or traditional conservatism. Because there are libertarian populist elements of both parties, both wings of the political spectrum, and there are authoritarian moralistic variants within both sides of the political spectrum, which is why the political compass, such as it is, has 4 vectors instead of just 2. And I will say this as many times as I have to. To me, the left-wingness or right-wingness of a given person on that political compass is nowhere near as important as where they fall on the vertical axis. I.e., I can deal with just about anyone on any version of the political compass so long as they are not authoritarian, so long as they are below the middle line of the political compass. As long as they are libertarianly minded and non-moralistic, I can deal with just about anyone. But anyone above the baseline of the political compass can get fucked. There is no reason for authoritarianism. There is no need for moralism, and there is no need for elitism. And anyone who thinks otherwise can send that letter to an address marked my ass. Thank you. Moving on.
All right. Moments that are troubling, but not egregious, such as Snoke having a shoehorned backstory after fan backlash that Snoke died in The Last Jedi before anybody could deep dive his life story. Remember Dave Rubin?
Brainstormer? Did we lose you?
Hello?
Okay.
Did I cut out?
Yes.
All right, I'll read that then. There are moments that are troubling but not egregious. Snoke horned backstory after fan backlash, in air quotes, that Snoke died in The Last Jedi before anybody could deep dive into the story. Remember the Dave Rubin tweet?
You don't get to put fan backlash in air quotes. Even if you don't like a group of people, if they can be meaningfully and correctly labeled as fans, and if their anger or their discontent or their contempt can be labeled correctly as a backlash, there is nothing figurative or invalid about that supposition, which would be implied by the air quotes. It is legitimate fan backlash. It's just a part of a fandom you don't like, or a backlash that you don't prefer to acknowledge. But just because you don't like something doesn't mean that it A, doesn't exist, and B, isn't meaningful. You can't. Moving on.
Alright, in another moment ripped from YouTube video, Skywalker catches his lightsaber after Rey throws it away from her and scolds her that the Jedi's weapon deserves respect. This is a direct response to online aggravation with Luke's putting scene in The Last Jedi. He tosses the lightsaber over his shoulder.
Because it was bullshit.
Hold on, let me read the lines of that paragraph. Who is in network with other fandom menace alt-right YouTubers, has an especially popular view on this complaint.
The fandom menace is not alt-right, you cunts. And it is actually a meaningful criticism because it shows a level of indifference and contempt for the IP, for the in-universe logic, for the grandiosity of the setting. All of which are important regardless of your political position if you are meaningfully a fan of something. Because I'm going to actually make a meaningful distinction between real fans and not real fans, okay? Real fans care about things like the in-universe logic, the diegetic reasoning, the three-dimensionality of the world and the characters, and the internal consistency thereof. Secondary fans, or unreal fans, or political opportunist fans only care about things like non-diegetic bullshit, didacticism, themes, and or socio-political and moral suppositions that can be secondarily attached to things. Because the Jedi are a spiritual order, they're they're uh, they're space monk wizards. It does make internally consistent sense that they should give a damn about their spiritual system and or their weaponry, their warrior monks. Hence, having Luke in a depressive fit throw his lightsaber nonchalantly as if it does not matter is a deliberate spiting of the in-universe logic of the setting and the weight of the IP itself, which is a direct insult to anyone who, by my definition of real fandom, cares about things like the in-universe logic or three-dimensionality of the setting, in spite of and in absence of any socio-political or moral gobbledygook. Do you see? Okay, basic how to human advice for you. Okay, I realize that in modern day academia, so many people are taught that the only value of art is as a didactic tool, or as a non-diegetic weapon, or as a socio-political staging platform. I realize that. I realize that the only thing that matters to so many art school 101 graduates is things like themes, authorial intent, non-diegetic suppositions and or implications. But for a large swath of people who are frankly far more sincere about things, they prioritize the in-universe logic of and validity of the setting over didacticism, over authorial intent, over non-diegetic socio-political implications and themes. And the fact that you can't see any intrinsic value, or at least emergent value, in the thing itself, and can only see art as a means to an end, as a weapon, as a didactic conversation piece, makes you a pseudo-intellectual cunt. It does not mean that you are quote-unquote media literate, because frankly, if your definition of media literacy means only non-diegetic things, themes, and socio-political and moral import matter, and nothing about the in-universe logic or substance of the setting matters, then you aren't media literate. You're a weaponizer of media. You're a person who treats art as a means to an end rather than an end in itself. And for most people who actually appreciate art and IP and settings, they prefer seeing art as an end in itself, not a means to an end. Moving on.
All right. It is the decisions, however, that respond to anti-feminist and racist hate dutifully spread by fandom alt-right networks that make The Rise of Skywalker a distressing film to view. What happens to Rey's story is particularly unsettling. She ends The Last Jedi as a nobody who has been given the power to not just simply rebuild the Jedi Order, but to take the teachings of the Jedi in a new, enlightened direction. However, in The Rise of Skywalker, Rey no longer has power of her own. She is told that she has the power of her grandfather, Emperor Palpatine, one of the most recognizable and powerful villains in Star Wars canon.
Because of this thing, once again, we refer to as in-universe logic.
Okay, but that
Again,
even with that doesn't work for Rey, to be fair.
well, no, it doesn't work because Rey's entire character is built essentially on nothing to begin with. But it does make more sense for her power to come from somewhere within her bloodline than for her just to exist because of how the in-universe mechanics of the setting work. And by the way, no, she's not she's not somehow enslaved to her destiny because of who her father is, any more than Luke is enslaved to his destiny because of who his father is. The whole fucking point that is made by Rey actually having some sort of place in the universe is that power doesn't just come from nowhere. There's a linear logical progression of descendant, like family ties, descendancy, genetic power, etc., that is canon to the setting. And to just ignore it as though you can conjure someone of substance from nowhere at all is subversive postmodern bullshit, and is an insult to not just the setting but the fans of the setting. And by the way, if you're unsatisfied with where Rey's arc ends up, I would point out to you that she is given the legacy of a Skywalker after defeating her family legacy of Palpatine. She is gifted the legacy of a Skywalker on a silver goddamn platter, and yet that isn't good enough for you somehow. It doesn't matter if the world itself bends over backwards to make the character valid. You are annoyed that she even has to be made valid because that demonstrates some sort of allegiance, at least, to the setting, to the IP, to the fandom, to the
Dalton,
thing in and of itself. But because you're a postmodern hack, you hate that. Which, I'm sorry, but I'm going to speak for all of fandom kind here. That is a you problem, rather than a problem of the setting. Moving on.
Yeah. In The Last Jedi, Rey confidently wields the Skywalker saber. There is a scene in the film dedicated to her understanding of how to use the saber's power, while a curious Luke Skywalker watches on. She'll later use the saber to help defeat Snoke's guards with the help of Kylo Ren. Her comfort with the saber acknowledges one of the most moving moments in The Force Awakens when the saber flies into Rey's hand as the Force theme swells around her. All of this suggests that Rey is capable and worthy of one of the most iconic objects in all of Star Wars. However, in The Rise of Skywalker, Rey tells General Leia that she will earn Luke Skywalker's saber, implying that she was undeserving of the saber the whole time.
Because you have to work for power. You have to work for knowledge. You have to work for the kind of discipline that both the Jedi and the Sith, to a degree, are sort of built upon. Because the setting of the Star Wars universe is a highly spiritual and highly intellectual universe, and therefore, in order to wield the kind of spiritual power that the Force is the mechanism of, you have to actually earn it. And you are bitching primarily, it seems, and I don't think I'm strawmanning you when I say, you are bitching because of the notion that power has to be earned and can't just come out of the ether because of the universe's favor for a character. Because, and I will remind you of this until the day I die, every character in the Star Wars universe, be they good, be they evil, be they somewhere in between, be they another faction within the setting entirely, power must be earned, especially spiritual and intellectual power, because spiritual and intellectual power of the kind wielded by Force users must be wielded with knowledge and discipline, and knowledge and discipline can't just fall out of the fucking sky. And if a character suddenly pulls shit out of the fucking sky, it's going to be a breach of the internal logic of the setting, and thereby piss off anyone who has any sort of regard for the internal logic of the setting. Do you see? That's why people were annoyed at Rey in the first place, because every other character in the setting, up to and including Luke, Leia, and all of the other main characters of the setting, had to earn their power and knowledge and discipline and skill. The fact that she was able to essentially do shit by means of simply existing in the setting is a breach of internal logic and is a reason to dislike her as a character. Same thing with Korra from Avatar Legend of Korra. Same thing with Captain Marvel. Power that is not earned is fundamentally hollow, especially in a narrative sense. So you have to show either that the character has gone through the process of earning it already by means of implying that they've already been through the training or been through the work they need to, or you have to show them acquiring it, preferably a mix of both. Moving on.
Okay. Furthermore, all the work that the Last Jedi had done to bring the Jedi Order into a new era was discarded. In what? Instead, the Jedi are treated like deities that Rey suddenly follows with no questions asked, even after spending the Last Jedi attempting to beat Luke Skywalker with a staff.
Because the way in which the Last Jedi went about doing this new path of yours was saying things akin to the past must die, burn it down if necessary, and that apparently being the one axiom that both the Jedi and the Sith can agree on, despite their long-standing war with one another, which is an explicitly overt evocation of the premises of postmodern deconstructionalism and or neo-Hegelian historical dialecticism, i.e., by saying that nothing of substance can be found in the previous tradition, by showing a deliberate discontinuity between the pre-existing tradition and the new tradition, you're essentially applying postmodern deconstructionalist logic to a setting that is reliant on its metaphysical mechanics and mythic weight, both narratively in the form of following Joseph Campbell's hero's journey cycle, but also mechanically because, again, the central focus of power within the Star Wars universe is one that is very much spiritual and metaphysical in nature and reliant upon those mechanics. That is what pissed everyone off. Because, and by the way, don't tell me I'm strawmanning Last Jedi or that Rian Johnson didn't intend for that to be the implication, because he explicitly said he didn't like the Star Wars franchise and wanted to turn it on its head postmodernly. Thus, by instituting postmodern reasoning into the setting that is directly anathema to it, you fundamentally broke something in the setting, and so JJ, in his wisdom, tried to undo it because there is supposed to be this mythic continuity between the generations of the Jedi and the Sith. Whether it's the rule of two Darth Bane era Sith, or whether it's the ancient Jedi of I forget, or even if it's a non explicitly like dark or light side faction, someone like the Night Sisters, power and knowledge and discipline, and the mythic weight
Dalton.
of acquiring that knowledge
Dalton.
through scholarship, discipline, etc., are all part of the
Dalton.
setting necessarily.
Hey, you're repeating yourself.
I know. This guy fucking pisses me off. The combination of like dismissive arrogance and also like pseudo intellectual obliviousness is fucking infuriating. Moving on.
In the end, Rey's story concludes where it began, alone in a desert. The final shot of the film is more for the audience's enjoyment than the character's story as she stares into the binary sunset from A New Hope. Rey is ultimately reduced to a vessel for the past instead of a force for the future. Okay,
because
hold on. May I
go ahead, please?
Speaking as someone who's written stories and stuff to varying degrees, again, kind of going back to what Don, you mentioned the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell's a hero of a thousand faces. Returning to the place you once did after your entire hero's journey, which admittedly, I think Rey's journey, her arc, was very rushed and obviously changed immensely because of Rian Johnson and The Last Jedi and stuff.
I will address that when it's my turn. Keep going.
Right. But when a character when their story concludes where it began, there should, right, be a grand difference. For the character is different and how it feels. Obviously, that didn't happen because, well, they're bitching about it, but that's mainly because of the total fucking flip-floppy bullshit that happened with the trilogy. That's not so much the character's fault, or even, I guess, the fault. It's more so the fault of, again, it's Rian Johnson's fault, honestly. It's kind of where the main issues.
I will elucidate this when it's my turn.
I would say I'm done. I think you can better enunciate what I'm trying to get at.
I will do my best. Okay. The reason that change happened, the reason why it is actually better for Rey as a character to be, as you put it, a vessel for the past rather than a breakaway to the future, is because, frankly, Rey, for the most part, does not have a character. She has a deliberate absence of character because, more or less, she is the avatar of the, neo-Hegelian, postmodern Frankfurt School mentality of art invading the mythic Joseph Campbellian world that is Star Wars. And as much as I find Joseph Campbell's hero's journey to be somewhat oversimplifying and taxing, and as much as I find Carl Jung's archetypes approach to analyzing art to be annoying, you can't get away with it. You can't get away from it with Star Wars because George Lucas explicitly made it that to begin with. Star Wars was his attempt to show that, at least in some cases, the Joseph Campbellian or Jungian approach can work. And if the previous regard people have for Star Wars is a demonstration of anything, it is a demonstration that while Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung aren't the, universal answer to everything like they thought they were, they are at least a template, a choice that an artist can go with if they want to. But point being, Rey's entire purpose is effectively to be an anti-character, to be to be a anti-story device. She exists to be. I'm having a hard time not comparing her to Darth Nihilus because she is to story, character, the mechanics of the setting what Darth Nihilus is in universe. Namely, where most characters gain their power, their mythic weight, their mechanical power from the continuity of the setting, from existing in the line, from being in continuity with not only the in-universe logic of the setting, but also the underlying narrative mechanics of the writing of the setting. Rey's entire existence was, and always has been a nullification of everything that makes Star Wars, and her power, insofar as she has power, comes from a deliberate evoking of discontinuity, disunity with the setting, and also both in universe she defies the line of knowledge that she is supposed to take advantage of, and out of universe she is essentially a nullification of the Joseph Campbellian Jungian approach in favor of the neo-Hegelian Frankfurt School type approach, the postmodern approach. And in order to solve that issue, in order to give her a place in the setting, as badly handled as it was, because when you try to fit an anti-character in the skin of a character, it ends up breaking things. But as badly as that was, it does make sense for her to be a vessel of the past, as you put it, because it reorients her in such a way to make her much like all the other protagonists and antagonists of the setting, an avatar of the continuity of the setting, both in universe and also the underlying like meta mechanics of the universe. Because she didn't start as one, it doesn't really work because she is an anti-character that someone is trying to force to be a character at the 11th hour. It didn't really work because her entire existence is anathema to the setting that she finds herself in, deliberately, in the case of everything Rian Johnson did, and even to some extent, thanks to Disney's meddling in the Force Awakens, she kind of even started that way. Um, but because her whole character is based on discontinuity, and the entire ethos of the setting is based on continuity down the generations, both in universe and out, um, in order to make her a meaningful character, they had to change her. They had to move her away from being a avatar of disharmony and discontinuity to an avatar of that kind of continuity. You just don't like it because you enjoyed seeing Rian Johnson with his neo-Hegelian postmodernism take the piss out of Star Wars. You liked seeing the mythic weight of Star Wars brought low. You liked seeing the overt politicization of Star Wars prioritized over the mythic weight of it, the heroic nature of it. The fans, however, very overtly told you in no uncertain terms to stop it, to knock that the fuck off. That was literally the opposite of what Star Wars is, was, and should be. And so JJ, as as hamstrung as he was by the weight of Rian Johnson's bullshit around his neck, he had to reorient her so that she would at least fit within the setting, so that she would at least move from being this disruptive, disharmonious force, both in and out of universe, to being a force along the line, a continuation of what already existed. The fact that you don't like that is immaterial to the fact that it is actually an improvement over what Rian Johnson was doing. The funny thing to me is that you think that your way of doing things was better. You think you're morally superior for wanting Rey to come in and deliberately wreck as many long established mechanics of the setting as possible. And you don't understand why it's legitimate for the fans to be pissed off at that. Moving on. We lose Brainstormer, or did his internet bugger? It wasn't
Sorry,
looking.
sorry, I muted myself while I was so
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making
my
sure
bad.
we weren't
I literally
caught by the technical
I
difficulties bug
literally
again.
talking, like I was halfway through the paragraph before. Okay.
Wah, 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 wah. We're professionals, folks. And he died. Wah, 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 wah. Okay, strike that and continuing from this point forward.
Okay. Let me. All right. All of these decisions attempt to answer backlash against race character that can be found in alt-right right-wing videos. In these videos, alt-right YouTubers claim that Rey cannot in the Force without intense training or powerful Force connection to a male legacy Star Wars character.
She could have just as easily been a continuation of Leia's legacy if you really wanted her to, or Ahsoka's, or Padme's.
Hold on. There's also I remember seeing this theory originally. I think it was either after the Last Jedi or before. I'm not sure. Or no, it might have been after the Last Jedi. That she could have been a clone of the librarian for the Jedi.
Jocasta Nu.
Thank you.
Jocasta
I couldn't
Nu.
remember her name for a second. Yeah, Jocasta Nu.
Yep.
Yeah, she could have been some type of clone or something like that. Which would have been, I think.
Yeah. No one is saying maleness was somehow central to Star Wars, because Leia has been a character since literally the first fucking movie. But and she was the most assertive of all the characters in the first fucking movie, by the way. But nevertheless, the point is not Orgle, Florgle, Blorgle, Mamale identitarianism or Mamale traditionalism or whatever the fuck. It is that the in-universe logic of the setting does and should take precedence over political themes. And it doesn't make any sense for someone to just have force powers out of nowhere. It is shown to be a disciplined skill, to be a spiritual and metaphysical devotion that is required, be it on the dark side or the light side. Nevertheless, it's still a matter of skill, discipline, and the like intellectual and intuitive understanding of the like metaphysical component of the setting, i.e. the Force. So yes, it does make no freaking sense for someone to just have Jedi powers or Force powers from the off, because it's a learned skill in the setting. It's not exactly a fully, hard magic system, but it is a skill and discipline based magic system, if nothing else. And it is something that one has to practice and learn. Because, for example, Anakin is literally he's Force Jesus. He was literally like immaculately conceived by the Force, thanks to Dark Plagueis' meddling. And even he, despite being the nominal divinely conceived Mary Sue of the set or Gary Stu of the setting, still had to learn shit, still had to discipline himself, still had to gain control, gain power in the Force. And yet you're telling me that Rey, who is not in the same vein of being divinely ordained and conceived by the Force, shouldn't have to do what literally every other Force user or quasi-Force user in the setting does. Like, do you not see how world-breaking that is? Regardless of all the identitarian shit, regardless of all the politicization shit, it is simply anathema to the setting. And being anathema to the setting is not an endearing quality for anyone who likes the setting. Moving on.
Moving on.
Yes.
All right. Rey's story was not the only one to be discovered for the narrative to focus on the nostalgia of the original trilogy. John Boyega's character Finn is also noticeably squandered in the film, and he's reduced to a sidekick Rey series of fetch quests. Yeah, everyone could agree. Like, I'm not going to disagree with that, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly sane. It's almost like you should have focused on characters other than the writers deconstructive self-insert character. Because
Like full
again,
honesty, and
it's
sorry, Don, I don't mean to cut you off. But because in all honesty, I'm sure we can all agree Finn might have been the better pick for the main character, just because he had a lot more potential for an arc and stuff, and would have been the first time in on film that we had like he should have been the Jedi, the one that becomes like Luke's apprentice and all that. Because on film, like there are stormtroopers like back like Kyle Katarn in a video game series of Star Wars games that became a Jedi. But it would have been the first time on film that a stormtrooper would have become a Jedi. Which would have been really cool. And honestly, his stuff and John Boyega acted his ass off. Like he was actually really good at those movies, even when he intended
and I'm gonna go even one step further. I don't think there should have been a singular main character in the movies. Just like in the original trilogy. Luke is the main like hero character, I suppose. But you'll notice that between the three main characters, between Han, Leia, and Luke, they pretty much get the same amount of screen time, full stop, because they're all the main characters of some story within the setting, and you could have and should have done the same thing with all of the main characters in the in the sequel trilogy, especially if you're doing the kind of passing the torch thing. Yeah, have Rey be Leia's apprentice. If since you absolutely insist on the whole feminist angle, have Finn be Luke's apprentice, and have Poe Dameron become the Han surrogate. And you could like there are the best way I can compare it is to Avatar: The Last Airbender, the original series. While Aang is definitely the chosen one, so to speak, um, everyone gets well-rounded character in that show. Everyone gets to feel like the main character of some story within the setting, and quite frankly, the character who gets the most character to the point that it's like otherworldly iconic is Zuko, which you also probably could have done with Kylo Ren if you really wanted to. Instead of insisting that everyone just fall in love with Rey for no explicable reason, put in the effort to write all the characters as well-rounded three-dimensional characters and make everyone have a unique reason to care about them. Because that is something you can do with the original trilogy. There are people who like Luke. There are people who like Obi-Wan. There are people who like Han. There are people who like Leia. There are people like me who prefer Yoda of basically everyone in the original trilogy. But the thing is, in a healthy, well-rounded story, you can have those kinds of arguments. You can have favorites within the setting. But when you bend the world over backwards and fuck it to the sound of grindcore to make everyone love Rey and only Rey, or at least that's what you want to have happen, everyone fails as a result. Moving on.
All right. Rise of Skywalker's first act, how oh, giant turtle. You can assume they can write them that well. You assume they can write them that well.
No, I'm not saying they
You
can. I'm saying the standard is that they should. Whether they are capable of doing so is a different question entirely. But that should be the standard. That should be the rule.
Right. All right. Also, he hopes. Well, he says, "Good luck not dying of cringe." with the article, and also rating check. Where are you two in your books? So I actually like. Funny enough, last night I started reading a little more of Worm, and it's good so far. I only read a few chapters last night. I read a few more after everything, but I'm enjoying it so far. It's actually even quiet, more slower paced moments of the book are still engaging to me, which
I
is
got
something that
sorry, go ahead. Finish.
I was just gonna say. Yeah, it's happen often. When the quote unquote boring aspects, like everyday slice of, I'd say it's slice of life, but um, it's just interesting, like because it feels real. It feels like feels like thoughts I've had when I was in high school.
I can't speak to Worm because I haven't read Worm, but given that it's the same author who wrote Pact as well, I will say I've noticed that same factor within Pact as well. It's very good. But to answer your question, I got to subordination 6.10. I think is where I'm at right now. I managed to read 4 more chapters since we finished talking last night. Or yeah, so slowly inching my way along. I plan to read or listen to a bunch more once we are done here.
Yeah.
Probably
Alright.
going to spend all Monday listening to it as well because I don't really have anything in particular to do on Monday either. So yay.
Alright. Alright, so let me read. Going forward. Moving on. The Rise of Skywalker's worst act, however, is screen time for trans Rose Tico down to about 1 minute. While screen time does get often for all characters in films, it's difficult to ignore the character's absence after years of racist harassment and death wishes to her character. Given that many moments in the film appear to be direct responses to internet conversations, and the reason behind trans exclusion becomes increasingly and dreadfully apparent.
Okay, I caught what you just did there, or I caught at least one of the duplicitous tricks you pulled there. Death threats to a character that someone is playing is not and will never be in any way equivalent to death threats to the person playing them. In fact, the most frequently recurring argument that I saw in relation to Rose Tico was, why did they make the obviously beautiful Kelly Marie Tran into a deliberately aesthetically unpleasing character? Why did they make Rose Tico as a character so deliberately ugly? And of course, the answer is related to they wanted to make a postmodernly deconstructed movie within the Star Wars franchise. Why they didn't just make a parody version or come up with their own thing, I don't know, other than the obvious they wanted to conquer the franchise from within, as ever they do. But that was the most reoccurring meme or argument against Rose Tico was um, they deliberately made a very beautiful actress in the form of Kelly Marie Tran deliberately aesthetically unpleasing to stick it to the fan base. And yeah, no, that's bullshit. Again, most of your alleged criticisms have nothing to do with the alt-right, which, by the way, again, is a term you keep fucking misusing, but it has nothing to do with politics or anything other than the fan base, the people who unironically care about the art as an end in itself or the setting in and of itself, don't like it when you deliberately spite the fan base and undermine the IP using postmodern deconstructionalism as a pseudo-intellectual hack shield. And when you deliberately spite the fan base when they offer meaningful criticism to you, surprise fucking surprise, the fan base stops liking you and usually goes about finding other ways to occupy their time. Yeah. But moving forward.
All right. As needed, all of these decisions were likely done without thinking about any of the potential consequences of the people who could be hurt, or of the racist and sexist agendas these decisions inadvertently encouraged. However, whether we choose to recognize the truth of the effective attack against the Star Wars sequel trilogy or not, the film in the Skywalker saga is a perfect example of how difficult it is to identify the difference between genuine fan concerns and full-blown culture wars. It also demonstrates how vital it is for businesses and creatives to understand those differences. As it stands, the Star Wars sequel trilogy is an unfortunate to the power of organized hate and the violent and vitriolic lengths that people will go to in order to stop cultural progress.
Okay. Here again, you are undermining your own goddamn arguments. And here's where I'm going to have to say, you're half right. Companies should make as much of a distinction as is possible between political agendas and genuine fan concerns. But here's the thing, and the thing that you are trying to conflate out of existence here, but I spotted it nonetheless. The majority of the criticism, the majority of the backlash, because there will always be some idiots and there will always be some bad actors who actually are the straw man viewer. But the thing of it is, if you actually meaningfully chose to parse the difference between politically motivated hate bullshit and fan reaction, you would realize that like 95% of all the criticisms are rooted not in any sort of hatred, but in fan reaction. But it rooted in the fans realizing that the in-universe logic of the IP itself, and their own fan base was not respected, and thereby reacting accordingly. When you, for whatever political or moral reason you choose, deliberately choose to spite the IP, to spite the fan base, and to spite the in-universe logic of the setting, anyone who cares about those things will inevitably be pissed off at you. And you don't get to unironically and lopsidedly get mad at them for being pissed off. When you deliberately choose to piss people off, you don't then get to whine and morally grandstand when they end up being pissed off. Do you see? But here's the thing. The focus of these companies should be to serve their fan bases first and foremost. Should be to serve their customer base first and foremost. But you, and where your framework is going wrong, is you are in this moment accurately diagnosing at least part of the problem, that companies prioritize politics over their fan bases, their IPs, and the in-universe logic of their settings. And you are siding with the politics over the in-universe logic or the fandom. Do you see how that makes you the wrong one? You see how that makes you the moron? It makes you the idiot. Because companies should serve their IPs, frankly, for their own sake. But even apart from that, they should serve the fandom that is the core audience of whatever setting they're working with. And they should prioritize pleasing their customer base over political and moral grandstanding. But you actually want them to prioritize the moral grandstanding and the politics over pleasing their fan base or their customer base. And that is why you are literally categorically wrong, like mirror universe inverted wrong about fucking everything. You take something that should be the truth, and you literally take the direct categorical opposite message away from it. Moving on.
All right. Of course, the alt-right on YouTube were not happy with the film. They will not be satisfied until the sequel trilogy is never spoken of again. Only time will tell how the trilogy will move forward or be remembered. In the meantime, there was one person who was pleased with this outcome. And I'm seeing a lot of quoted tweets of, like, snapshots of tweets of Ben Shapiro.
I don't fucking care what Ben Shapiro thinks, because my intellectual capabilities are broader than basic bitch politics. And just because someone that I may or may not like does or doesn't like something, that doesn't somehow poison the well against my own opinions on the topic. And once again, for the probably 100th time since we started this article way back in 2019 or 2020 or whatever the fuck when we started, you didn't use the word alt-right correctly. The alt-right very specifically refers to a variety of softcore white nationalism perpetuated by upper middle class hipsters like J.F. Garapi and Richard Spencer, whose presence was primarily felt online. And I'm just going to point it out to you. The alt-right never really had an opinion on Star Wars to begin with. The people who did were fans of Star Wars who may or may not have been associated with opposing the ideology and the framework, known alternatively as social justice, wokeness, ESG/DEI, or neo-Hegelian post-Frankfurt School deconstructionalism. I prefer the last one because it's the most accurate way to describe things, or the first one because it's the most accurate way to label the things that are wrong with the opinion. But nevertheless, whatever euphemism you choose to call that thing, the people who were actually most interested in Star Wars as it related to opposing social justice were fans of Star Wars first and foremost, who happened to also oppose social justice. And they weren't all conservative or even right-wing. Again, I have said it many times over, and I will say it many times into the future, I am certain. I am a fundamentally left-wing individual. But I am also a fundamentally populist and libertarian individual, because as I have said many times, the distinction between left and right do not matter anything like as much as the distinction between libertarian and authoritarian, or populist and elitism, etc. Like those things are more important and more fundamental to my political positions than wheresoever you want to put me on the left versus right political compass. Like, I prefer to focus primarily on the vertical aspect of the political compass, i.e., the people I oppose, generally speaking, is anyone above the baseline on the political compass. I see no reason for that top half to exist. Or at the very least, I don't support the idea of giving anyone in that top half any influence or importance whatsoever. The world, I think, would be better off if we all found a home somewhere in the bottom half of the political compass. Wheresoever we fall horizontally, I don't fucking care. But my opposition is primarily an opposition to authoritarianism, moralism, and elitism, and in favor of humanism, libertarianism, and populism. Those are the political distinctions that I actually give a shit about, and I don't like anyone who is in favor of those tops, the inverse of those three things. But the thing is, you want to believe that everyone who opposes you must be as moralistic, as authoritarian, and as elitist as you are. It simply is not so. You don't have to be right-wing to oppose social justice, or just like you don't have to be left-wing to be opposed to moralistic, authoritarian, family values, traditional conservatism. Because you can be a right-winger who is more libertarian or populist-minded and non-elitist, just like you can be a left winger who is libertarian, populist, and non-elitist minded, who opposes social justice. Thank you, piss off. Moving on.
Well, it's a new section. I mean, it's the last section, but I don't know. Do you want to?
It's close enough to 9:30. We can stop it there, and then when we next return to the Star Wars article, we might actually fucking finish it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way,
And on that day, I will bust open whatsoever liquor I happen to have on hand at that point.
I also looked it up. For the record, 3 years. You were right. We've been doing this.
Yeah, because I thought we started covering it like the weekend that it came out, but I could have been wrong, or like the week after.
But yeah, we've been doing this 18 times, counting this one.
Mm-hmm. Once more into the breach, folks.
Right,
Into the breach, and we will finally be done with this. Our white whale will finally have been slain.
Right. Okay. Give me a second. Let's get the other thing ready. Gonna mute myself real quick.
Yeah. The reason you're ahead of me, Dragon Turtle, is because I had to sleep at some point, and I only had a couple hours between when I woke up this morning and when I decided to get in the bath finally to listen to more of it. Because I do have other things in my life somewhere. As much as I would like to binge finish this, I will take my sweet ass time.
Okay.
Especially because I also just recently finished Has Been Hotel, and that took out 4 hours of time I probably could have spent reading to the thing. Again, Alistair continues to be based Radio Demon. But that's neither here nor there.
Yep. All right. So I came across this. The Mufasa, the Lion King teaser trailer came out 6 days ago.
I mean, financially, I can see why they made a prequel, but like, I don't think anyone, like, even as successful as it was, very few people actually liked the live-action Lion King. So it's still probably a stupid decision. And honestly, I would have preferred a live-action version of Lion King 2, because honestly, I think the sequel is even better than the first one. The animated Lion King 2 Simba's Pride sequel.
Right,
I also really good.
It's photorealistic. I don't think it technically counts as live action.
Oh God, this is gonna spawn yet another version of that diatribe. The armed camps of animation snobs trying to figure out whether it counts as live action or not.
I mean, is it though? I mean, they're CGI created characters. They're not real. I mean, yes, they're based off.
Right, but it's it's supposed to be photorealistic. It's not supposed to be a stylized form of animation. Granted,
far
it probably would be better off if it were a stylized form of animation, but nonetheless.
It's a good question, John. They asked why the hell do they look like they are in the Arctic? To be fair, does Africa have like snowy any type of snow?
One assumes on like mountaintops, although I imagine it's supposed to just be like sand. But honestly, the biggest problem with this movie, as with the first one, the pseudo live action first one, not the original first one, is they took the animated first one and they sucked out all of the color and stylization. Why did they do this? I don't fucking know, but they did.
Was it also the music?
They sort of half tried to do some of the songs. They didn't do a fucking version of Be Prepared, but they had Scar speak talk Be Prepared, but of all of the many problems of the pseudo live action Lion King, that is probably a fairly minimal gripe.
Depends on how much you like the song, to be fair.
I mean, it's fucking Be Prepared, dude. Villains almost always get the best songs, and Be Prepared is a good example of a case where the villain probably got at least arguably the best song.
Anyway, it's a minute 32, so shall we?
Coconuts?
No.
Because Zazu with the coconuts?
What about who? Well, I mean, I know who Hakuna Matata isn't related to food, but it feels right to say. Also, I do want to kind of just say it, to be fair.
Yeah, Hakuna Matata is cool. So, yeah. Hakuna Matata. Although I reserve the right to be worried, despite the advice.
This story begins far beyond the mountains and the shadows. On the other side of the light.
I don't really have anything to say. I mean, they're using the music, which is cool.
Yeah, but that didn't help things last time, and I have no reason to believe that it's going to help things this time.
But yeah, honestly, these scenes would look... I mean, the snow scenes looked fine, and even the tree one we just saw with the... I don't know what kind of monkeys those are, but like Rafiki is, but...
He's a baboon. But, I'm going to say the same thing about this as I said about the first pseudo live action Lion King. Just because you wanted something to have a live action aesthetic does not preclude you from including color and stylization.
Yeah, because, like, speaking as someone who has been outside, despite it coming across as I don't, the outside actually is pretty saturated, like very colorful.
This is going to trigger me off doing yet another rendition of my hatred of softcore nihilism in the name of realism thing, because so many attempts to be quote unquote realistic just wind up strawmanning reality by like turning everything into gray, miserable, washed out, like irrelevant cuboids of things. And this is yet another case of, have you seen the vibrancy of nature? Like, have you never watched a Animal Planet or Planet Earth documentary? Nature is very, very colorful. God damn it! There's nothing preventing you from being simultaneously quote unquote realistic or naturalistic and also being colorful and stylized. Nothing whatsoever. and yet this is what they chose to do.
Anyway, Hakuna Matata
Hakuna Matata
means no worries.
for the rest of your days. It's a problem.
If I'm gonna have an earworm, I'm glad it's that song because that's actually a fun song.
Yeah, I still have nostalgia over that song, both for the original, Lion King, and also because Timon and Pumbaa had a show back in the day. It was cool.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Hakuna Matata.
Mhm.
A lion was born without a drop of nobility in his blood. A lion who would change our lives forever. Mufasa.
I don't.
It looks
Yes.
like they're in the Arctic dragon turtle because they washed out any gold or brown saturation in the
No,
desert sands.
They were on a snow-capped mountain in the beginning.
Okay. But even so, you can't really tell much of the difference because everything is so, like, quote unquote realistic and desaturated that it's actually kind of unwatchable.
I kind of have to disagree because you can tell the difference. One, because there was like icicles, and again, it was weirdly enough the snow mountain scene was actually more colorful than anything else we've seen so far. I'd argue.
It is true, and it shouldn't be it shouldn't be that way around. But if there's only so much damage repair that they can be expected to do, because all of our criticisms so far have been criticisms of the first one. It's kind of like why, as much as I would enjoy ripping Dune 2 a new asshole, a large part of its problems began with the first one. It's the same reason why I'm really not looking forward to Sandman Season 2 for Netflix, because it's not even going to be an interesting level of hatred, because so many of the problems are problems that began with the first season. And they can't really be expected to fix them now. I'd love it if they did. I'm all for course correcting in between sequels as and when you can, but it really seems like they're not really attempting to course correct at all. Yeah.
Moving on.
Anyway. Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata.
Mufasa. The earth will shake. Destiny awaits you.
It happened again. How is the ice more interesting looking than the main setting of the story?
To be fair, it seems like it's barren, like Pride Rock and stuff. It seems like it's a barren place.
Right. It's the Serengeti, but the animated one managed to make it look visually interesting. So I refuse to give them I refuse to give them too much slack. Anyway, Hakuna Matata.
For record, the music that was playing was really interesting because it obviously doesn't sound like the music from the original movies, like the animated ones.
Mm-hmm.
But it still sounds really cool. Though, granted, I'm half expecting that it's just the trailer music, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, there is a possibility that this one might be better because there's more actual creativity going into this one because it's not just riffing off the most dull, boring version of the first one. But it honestly, if it's better, I'm gonna be pissed because that means that someone could have managed to put in the effort in the first one and they just didn't. I'd much prefer a situation where they just didn't have the talent to fuck with it, rather than a situation where they did and they chose not to. Anyway,
Right.
Hakuna Matata.
No worries.
For the rest of your days, it's no problem. Curiosity.
Like it has a sense of epicness, like a Shakespearean play. I won't know that, or even like a little of like a story from Africa, right? But
Honestly, and I'm gonna sound like Dragon Turtle when I say this, but if there was gonna be a Mufasa prequel, I kind of wish they had returned to hand-drawn animation. Because
it's bigger
it's obviously not because I have any sort of bias against live action things. As stated, I would prefer things be translated into live action more, but the problem is 2019's Lion King didn't translate the original well. It's not an accurate version of the original, and therefore any sort of positive there could have been to translating it is null. And so, if there is to be a Mufasa prequel, I would prefer either they fix the aesthetics so that it actually looks half decent, or if they just return to hand-drawn animation.
it's like
Yeah.
10 or so minutes left. So it's not bad.
Hakuna Matata.
Means no worries.
For the rest of your days.
December 20th.
Yeah, it does make sense. It would be a Christmas release. So yeah, that makes some sense. I still would prefer that they either accurately did a decent transposition of the animated version or that they return like I do prefer like live actionification of things. But the proviso there is it has to be a good translation of the original, and it's not. So failing a decent live action transposition of shit, go back to hand drawn animation because at least that was aesthetically better. There's no reason the live action one couldn't have been aesthetically good. You just didn't make it that way for whatever stupid reason. And failing a decent live action aesthetic, go back to animation. Because you're helping no one, nor are you helping the craft of or the technical aspect of CGI by making shit live action adaptations. The boundaries of what CGI can do are only pushed when you do a accurate and aesthetically pleasing translation of something from animation or other format to live action.
Right.
it's one of
Alright,
those
moving on.
cases of if you can't do it right, don't do it at all.
Alright, so moving on.
Yep.
So I sent this as well because it came out not too long ago, like a few days ago, I believe. Yeah, 5 days ago. My Adventures with Superman Season 2 trailer. Still, weirdly enough, it's on Adult Swim. Like, out of everything, that is one of the weirder parts of this. And I've made my I wouldn't say disdain for it, but my dislike of this known.
Dissatisfaction.
When we watched. Yeah, mainly the issue with it I have is the animation style, or not the animation style, but the art style. And we'll get into it. But let me full screen this. The issue I have with it, because clearly they're going like anime inspiration for the whole show, right?
Yeah.
Like the fight scenes, the character actions, the kind of writing, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
The art style bugs because it is super generic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so bland that it just kind of disinterests me to it all. Like, it doesn't matter how cool animation is or anything. It's just the animation, the art style. I want to make that clear distinction. The art style is so boring to me that I cannot get into it.
Playing
also the
devil's
fact that
advocate.
Also, hold on.
Sorry.
Also, the fact that
Go ahead.
they oversimplify a lot of the Superman villains and basically just turn them all into tech, like Silver Banshee and stuff. Parasite as well. Like, it's all tech based, without like just simplifying his rogues gallery down as well.
Yeah. Playing devil's advocate. Better for it to be inoffensively dull than ugly, because they could have Velma'd it, so it could be worse.
That's fair. I'm just saying, like, honestly, would have preferred if they got like Glenn Murakami to do the designs, because that guy's awesome.
Yeah, that Glenn
Like, if anyone can
Murakami is always
if anyone can do pseudo anime for cartoons, it's Glenn Murakami.
Especially a superhero show. Yeah. Like,
yeah,
he
guy did
cracked the code of how to do this like a decade ago, guys.
Yeah.
Actually, more like 20 years ago now, but you know what I'm saying.
God, you must feel old.
And God, I'm old.
Yeah. But just so everyone's aware, he obviously worked on Teen Titans, the original 2000s Teen Titans show that Teen Titans Go is ripping off, and poorly.
Yeah,
the
let's
Batman
not
cartoon
talk about Teen Titans Go.
The Batman cartoon from 2004. A few others. I don't know. Did he work on Legion of Superheroes?
I want to say so, but I could be wrong. I didn't realize he was the one behind the Batman. Good for him. I have all the more reason to like him now.
Yeah, he's done. Yeah, it's pretty good at, like, character designs and stuff. I think he has some comic books for Image back in the 90s.
Cool.
Or I saw someone who had an art style similar to it.
There was a time we had a better class of artists, folks. We don't have them anymore.
But
we used to have a better class of artists.
Yeah, and he's still around. So, but yeah, if anything, and honestly, a Superman anime would be fucking cool because you could take a lot of inspiration from a lot of different shonen anime.
Yeah,
I feel like he fits well.
I mean, the memes comparing Superman to Goku already exist. You might as well run with it.
I mean, they did give him a magical girl transformation in the show, so.
Yes, I know. And apparently there's also some sort of blue energy variant of like Kryptonian Super Saiyan as well.
I mean, to be fair, Superman Blue is a thing, so
Yeah, but
so fine with that.
I've I didn't even like it when they did it in the comics, so like it is a weird pull to do. I get why, because obviously they are trying to go in an anime aesthetic,
But also,
but
okay, I think again, mainly my issues are as shallow as it seems. Are the main issues I have with the show are more or less just given like the art style and the flatness of it, and yeah, the generic boringness of it. That's mainly it. And again, like I did mention, obviously techifying a lot of character and simplifying his rogues gallery to being just tech based or something, which sucks.
and of course, because I'm me, I will always and forever be the guy who asks, "Where are all the magic-based characters?" I mean, they did have Mixie in there, so I suppose that counts, but still.
Although his design I would find kind of weird because they made him look very like a generic anime elf dude.
They did. They did. They didn't really do anything particularly interesting with Mixie. But at least they had
No, they
Mixie.
did not.
So
You are an easy motherfucker, Dalton. No offense, obviously.
I'm sorry, but I'm still fucking waiting for them to adapt Mixie in live action. Still waiting.
They technically did in Supergirl.
Well, but a like blockbuster where it's like frankly, just in general in Superman movies, can we get somebody who isn't Lex Luthor, please? Like, Lex is fine and Lex is all well and good and all, but can we get somebody who isn't Lex for like 5 minutes? We still haven't gotten a live action Brainiac in the movies yet. And it fucking pisses me off. So let alone Mixie. So yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, there was, in shows, there have been versions of Mixie, like Howie Mandel played Mixie in Lois and Clark's New Adventures of Superman, but I mean, in the movies where he actually has the budget to make use of his, reality bending Q-like powers there.
Giant Charles, to answer your question, there's a containment suit. Experienced a weird power form with pure and yeah, that's it. I don't know how the adventures. Yeah, mainly
The My Adventures.
I know it's shallow.
The My Adventures with Superman version had more in common with the DC Rebirth version, where it's essentially what happens when his powers, the energy of his powers, gets stored up long term, and he basically can like let it all out in a large burst.
20, shall we?
Yes. What pause phrase you want to do?
Big Belly Burger, which for those who don't know, Big Belly Burger is a thing in the fast food restaurant. I think it became more popularized via the CW show that used it a lot. W continuity.
I don't know about that one.
Either that or Planet Krypton, which was Planet.
Honestly, I would go for an old school
record. I think it was introduced in Kingdom Come, like in the 90s. It was that has all the wait staff up as superheroes.
Hmm.
Like a superhero
Um,
Hooters, basically.
Right. But what about, going for a really old school reference? What about Hostess fruit pies?
Stole 40 pies.
Hmm?
Luther stole 40 pies. Anyway, just I was gonna say fruit pie. To be fair,
Okay. Hostess fruit pies. It is.
Who the heck are you?
Stay away from my friends.
Lois, Jimmy, and the Man of Steel are just three better that fly. Battling the
Any toys? Finally.
this feels like a trailer.
Mm.
I'm not saying that as like a good.
You're
the
you're breaking you're breaking up a lot there, Brainstormer. I don't know what's wrong,
God
or if it
damn.
might be on my end.
What damn thing?
I'll dip out. I'll
Oh.
dip out and come back in. See if that helps. Okay. Are we back?
Game. Hello?
No. There you go. It's better now.
So you can hear me now? Okay, like we're
Yes, I believe the technical difficulties have abated, at least for the time being.
okay. So what was I saying? Mentioned how this was coming across as like a early 2000s trailer for a cartoon, like a promo on TV.
Mhm.
Not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that that's what it's coming across as.
Yeah, which I
Void
mean
stuff.
it could be worse. So
Um,
although I don't know why
again,
they
like
don't just run this on ordinary Cartoon Network. Has Cartoon Network just
Cartoon Network.
moved away from action cartoons entirely? Must be.
I think it's dead. I'll be fully honest. I have not heard a damn thing about Cartoon Network at all in years.
That's a shame. So many of my childhood memories are from them. Then again, Nickelodeon isn't much better at the moment. So
Or Disney Channel.
I haven't seen anything of particular note either way on Disney Channel in a while. The last like new thing I knew that they were doing was there was a spin-off of That's a Raven called Raven's Home, and then there was Lab Rats. I think that's the last thing I've known that they were doing.
Lab Rats were big.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm old.
Yes, you are.
And we lost him again. And we lost Brainstormer, so one assumes he is rebooting his computer again. And while he is gone, DT, you and I can talk about Pact if you want. I just got to the part where Isadora told Blake he was about to die, and that Rose was going to replace him, and then he was talking to Rose, and apologizing to Rose and Evan erroneously. That's where I paused to go get in the bathtub. So that is where I'm at with regards to the story thus far. I assume that they're going to find some way of thwarting Conquest, but I do not know if Blake is going to survive that or not.
Okay, I'm back. What I miss?
Okay. Nothing. Since you were gone, me and Dragon Turtle were just talking about Pact.
Okay. Where did I start to cut off? Is the question.
We started talking about how Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and Disney Channel had gone downhill, and then I mentioned that the last two things I knew that Disney Channel was doing were Raven's Home and Lab Rats, and then you mentioned that it was from
the whole diatribe I was talking about for like 2 minutes before I exited, no one caught.
It got yeeted from
God damn it.
the record.
Okay, what I was saying was, again, I don't like being negative. I feel like everyone here knows that I don't like to be negative.
This is true.
But the
Because you are a
storytelling, I don't have.
mineral.
The storytelling, I don't have a problem with it. It's fine for what it is. Though, granted, every character seems like a fucking idiot.
Yeah, that's a modern writing flaw. That's a perennial problem for modern day writers.
All right.
As the old saying goes, you can't really write a character smarter than you.
Well, okay. What I mean by idiot, to define my term, is the very loud, very like, oh my gosh, like that kind of shit.
Every character has ADHD. It seems.
Yeah, basically.
Like I
Um,
said, perennial problem of modern day writers.
um, but what I was gonna say was, and again, this is mainly coming from my like how I'm more used to like stylized stuff, and I hate the generic look of everything.
Mm-hmm.
The shading bugs me a lot because it either feels too. None of it because usually shading gives depth to a scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's supposed to, to make things feel like not tangible, but the shading helps in
Giving
both.
things dimension.
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. But it all feels so flat here. It never feels like the shading is either too light that it just feels like some weird painting mistake for the backgrounds, or it just doesn't give depth. Like you see the shadow behind these robots here, like going up the stairs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not working at
It's
all.
very much kind of the same problem as we often point out in live action stuff when the shadows aren't dark enough and everything is washed out.
Yeah. It's weird that it's in a cartoon, but it feels so flat. Like, and I get it, it's a background still. That's kind of the point of a background still. But
Hollywood
usually
in general has just completely failed to remember how to use color, it seems.
I don't get it. But I mean, everything else doesn't seem to be a problem. The shading of things is kind of like my biggest issues, just because it lacks a depth to it.
Yeah.
Again, if you're gonna go anime, go fucking anime. And anime, weirdly enough, has real artistic merit to it.
Because they actually didn't catch the deconstructionalist virus.
Well, to be fair, there's a caveat of that artistic merit because a lot of animators and a lot of animation studios in Japan are very overworked.
Yeah, which honestly just makes Western animation or Western aesthetics look even worse. Because if someone who is literally being treated like a sweatshop slave can do better art than this, then it's either an artistic choice that you're making, which is bullshit, or it's a simple lack of artistic understanding in your artistic framework, which I think I'm more inclined to blame.
Fair enough. Anyway.
Hostess fruit pies.
Fruit pie, yeah.
You can finally take out Superman.
What's your name?
Lex Luthor.
You have no idea what you're up against.
Superman saves us from threats. Ever since that alien showed up, Metropolis has been a parade of freaks and destruction.
I will take.
Okay, am I having a stroke, or does Lex look like Light Yagami in this?
Budget brand, like Light Yagami from Etsy, maybe.
Yeah, but like his aesthetic is definitely giving me Light Yagami vibes, and I don't think that's accidental. Because the two traditional versions of depicting Lex Luthor is when he was younger, he had red hair, or of course the bald version, and in either case, that's not what Lex traditionally looks like. So someone seems to have chosen to make him look like Kmart
I mean,
brand Light
like,
Yagami.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't see like I see very fairly generic white guy character design. That's it. Like the hair and everything. Honestly, it looks like the hair I saw from the 2017 Spider-Man cartoon.
Oh right, yeah, kind of. But yeah, for some reason, my first thought was Light Yagami. Like as you say, budget like store brand Light Yagami.
I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't say store brand. That's insulting store brand because I've eaten store brand stuff and it doesn't taste that bad.
Yeah, a lot of store brand stuff is actually better, but you know what I'm saying. But anyway, I don't know why they chose to make Lex look like literally nothing like Lex, but it's bothersome.
He's supposed to be young here, but it's still like I'm
He
fine with
should-
him having hair, but it should be red hair, you know?
Yeah,
Right?
at the very least, he should be a redhead because he was a redhead in the golden age of comics. So like, if you're gonna show us a young Lex Luthor with hair, then he had best be motherfucking ginger.
Again, everything it feels so weird. Like again, it's yeah, you know, I don't know. It's just like Superman hasn't had a cartoon since the 90s, basically, right?
Yeah.
Which is a travesty in of itself. And as a Superman fan, I die a little bit inside knowing that fact.
Well, people just don't get Superman as a character,
Don't-
and that's part of the
Don't
problem.
get me started. Don't get me started on that because we'll be here all fucking night. You know that.
Yes, I know. I'm just pointing it out because that is a large part of the problem. People don't do things with Superman by himself because people just don't get Superman as a character. Which, admittedly, until we met and you drilled it into my head, I didn't really get the character either, and I still, in many ways, don't get the character. But
Which is fine. I
yeah,
understand
but-
that. Like, it's not your cup of tea, but you at least understand why I appreciate the character, why I like the
yeah,
character.
but more to the point. One thing I have learned from you especially is not only do people not understand Superman as a character, they often deliberately write him out of character because they don't understand why his original character would be likable.
I mean, to be fair, from everything I've seen of My Adventures with Superman, they have Clark.
Yeah, no, he's very wholesome. He's cute. It's
Yeah.
fine.
And,
He is
Superman's
he
cut
is the
short,
requisite he is the requisite portion of cinnamon roll that he should be. So it's fine.
Right.
But still,
but
as a general rule, the reason why people avoid writing him is because they not only don't they understand the character, they don't respect the character either.
again, don't get me started on that. We'll be here all night. But yeah, Clark in this show is fine. I'm fine with the character, how he's written. I mean, again, kind of dumb, kind of ADHD. To be fair, the dumb thing I could be fine with a bit.
Yeah, because he's a little bit of to use a modern meme, he has a little bit of golden retriever energy to him, which is fine.
But and this is a young version of him when he's just starting out, and that's fine.
He's still kind of in his late teens, early 20s, so yeah.
I would say early 20s more so. Like
How old is
college.
he supposed to be in My Adventures with Superman? I thought he was like 18 or something, but I might just be projecting youth onto him
Well,
because
okay,
I'm old
he's an
now.
intern. Lois, and Jimmy are interns at the Daily Planet. An intern usually interns apply when they're like going for college credits. So college, or might be sort of out of college, possibly.
I've seen teenage interns, so it might be like late teens, early 20s, but
Well,
somewhere in there.
wait, I think there was a scene where it mentioned that he and Jimmy were roommates in college. So
Okay,
they
so
might-
they're at the very least like early college at the most. Okay, that's fine. Just
if we're to be
getting
if I'm to be charitable, I would say at least mid college.
Okay, but anyway, they're in that transition young adulthood phase.
Right.
In any
But
case.
overall, again, Clark's not the issue. Mainly, it's kind of everything around him, like the Superman lore and other characters, somewhat seem off. And again,
Which
my
I-
biggest pet,
which I
my,
go ahead.
sorry, my biggest pet peeve, as I mentioned before, was the art style. Just for the sake, just for the basic, boring genericness of it
Mm-hmm.
is kind of my biggest issue. Because again, if you're
Mhm.
going to copy anime, which they basically are, right? It's a Superman anime.
Yeah,
Then copy fucking anime.
yeah.
Like,
There are so many better anime tropes and things and aesthetics you could like.
so sorry. I was gonna say, like, the biggest 3 inspirations. I was gonna make a whole Twitter thread of this for him out. Like the 3, because again, the biggest storytelling.
Mhm,
And after Superman, more or less,
Mhm.
is a
mhm,
because I'm art style that's pretty cool.
Mm.
Obviously, I
Mhm.
mentioned, like, if you're going to go this dude's fucking cool. Designs have stuck in my head
Mhm.
for years.
Mhm.
And the third, was there a third actually? Well, I think it was supposed to be. I think I originally thought like Transformers anime did like anime style rather well.
Mhm.
It wasn't Glenn actually. It was someone. Unfortunately, he did pass some time ago, but
Mhm.
like it's like they're trying to do anime, but that makes sense.
You broke up again.
They're trying to do anime, but kind of wish wash it.
Mhm.
You know,
They're doing what someone who's never seen anime would think anime is, basically.
yeah. So it's weird. Like, I want to like this show now because I haven't got. Like, I did not have a Superman show. Like, I had 2 Batman shows. In well, 3 if you count Justice League like Unlimited. But
Mhm.
I grew up not Batman the Animated Series and Batman the Brave and the Bold, which I knew more about. Because
Mhm.
I was still growing up, but yeah, no, I did not grow up with a Superman. Isn't linked to
Apart from reruns of the animated series, probably.
yeah. Those are rare though. I never really got to watch those.
Mhm.
So yeah, like this is the first one since the '90s, mostly. Yeah, this is the first one. Granted, this technically wouldn't be my generation.
Mhm. And I guess you're also too young for Smallville, come to think of it, speaking of Superman shows.
Animation, like animate show.
Mhm.
So I kind of no. Okay, no.
Mhm.
Huh.
Because Superman and Lois is too recent, I think, to be technically your generation of content.
I would like to count it because I think it's rather good for Superman. Yeah, I would agree.
Mhm.
Just because I was in my 20s.
Because I remember when we tried to watch it together. Also, sorry about that, but
Like, it's rather well. It's mostly surface level. My issues with this show.
Mhm.
Yeah. As Lord expanded upon later, obviously. I get 1 sec.
Mhm.
Anyway, shall we?
Fruit pie.
Is rightfully mine and rebuild the Kryptonian Empire.
Run! Get out!
It would be that easy.
Season 2 premieres May 25th. Next day on Max.
I'm not alone.
There's still 20 seconds left, so
Fruit pie.
it does seem like Brainiac going to be the main villain, which is interesting.
Hmm.
Although the design for him is fairly generic robot.
Mhm.
That was Studio Trigger art style for Superman. Scenes and shit like that.
Mhm.
Gordon, Kill la Kill. I don't. They do. No.
Hmm.
Anyway, host fruit pie.
Hostess fruit pies.
Again, like I want to be excited for the things that kind
Hmm.
of turn like it makes sense.
Mhm. Who knows? Maybe it'll be better. Maybe it'll be better with season 2. Maybe it'll have improved.
Yeah, but with everything, which I would say are what I think of the story, just because I didn't talk really at all of that,
Mhm.
because it seemed fine. Is again, my major issues have just been the art style.
Mhm.
So, all right, give me this trailer up. Something
Mhm.
positive to end on.
Yep.
You know, it's funny. I just realized you saying Lex
Saying what?
Luthor and Superman, the super in my adventure look like Light Yagami. My project that is inspired by the Ruby and working on
Mm-hmm.
my Lex Luthor character. Lex Luthor is voiced the guy who does the English voice for Light Yagami.
It's a small world after all.
Seemed like a really anime version of Lex Luthor.
Mm-hmm. Lex with the Death Note would have been worse though.
Bad. Um, it's yeah, it is. Light Yagami, yeah, Luthor in a way.
Mm.
Enormous ego, Machiavelli bullshit.
Honestly though, I think
God,
Lex would have been closer to what would have happened if L had found the Death Note instead of Light.
okay, see you around, Vern.
Mm.
Uh, the actually, now that I think about it, yes, I do.
I don't see
It's
it.
a
I'll have to.
okay.
I'll have to.
I
I'll
was
have to jump out and jump back in. I can't see it.
yeah, the father for
Okay, I'm back. Are you there? I'm not getting any audio from you. Brainstormer. You are having no audio right now. And technical difficulties again. Sorry, folks. I am dealing with pleasing my cat. He decided to come in and demand attention. And we're still waiting on Brainstormer, unfortunately. I apologize for the dead air. One assumed Brainstormer had to reboot his computer again. Watching and waiting and watching and waiting. Yep. He just texted me. He said his internet is being stupid. You should be back soonish. Wouldn't be one of our streams if it were not for the technical difficulties. Now with it. And I feel as though I have to use the restroom, but it will wait because I don't want to leave you guys in the lurch while we're waiting for him to come back. So I will just have to be uncomfortable until we can finish the Planet of the Apes trailer. So we're working on sorting out the technical difficulties. I think Brainstormer's just gonna have to reboot his internet or modem before stream so that it works. Because otherwise it seems to want to crap out entirely. And we are still waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. When in doubt, fill the dead air with a Tom Ledner song. Gather round while I sing you a Werner von Braun, a man whose allegiance is ruled by expedience. Call him a Nazi, he won't even frown. Nazi Smarty Saison Van Blanc.
Hello?
Hello. He's back. Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
thank God. You can go take your bathroom. I'll keep anyone entertained.
Okay. Thank you. I will be back.
Ada, so. Oh, shit. New icon. Cool. Let me get set up then. There we go. So I don't. How's everyone doing? Anyways, what? Uh, um, I've been busy working. Because I have so many ideas that I can stop making. Relatively recently, I have thought of an idea. Well, actually, no, no, I've made it no secret. I'm working on a revision of the entirety of the DCEU. That I'm gonna be posting to to a subreddit of fixing movies on Reddit. Uh, Mainly, it's been a pain in the ass just because it's taking so long, and I'm more or less rewriting everything, minus a few movies here and there. I'm going absolutely insane because it is taking forever. I got general ideas for everything written down, mainly simple little tweaks and stuff, but uh, hmm. at hmm, okay. All right, so I will be reading the monologue of Silco from episode 3 of Arcane. Ever wondered what it's like to drown? Story of opposites. There's peace in water, like it's holding you, whispering in low tones to let it in, and every problem in the world will fade away. But then there's this thing in your head, and it's raging, lighting every nerve with madness to fight, to survive. All while this question lingers before you. Have you had enough? It's funny. You could pass a lifetime without ever facing a choice like that, but it changes you forever. For that, I thank you, old friend. Now I'll be reading the message of the goodbye speech from Church of Red vs. Blue in season 13. There's so many good stories where some brave hero has to give their life to save the day. And because of their sacrifice, the good guys win, the survivors cheer, everyone lives happily ever after. But the hero never gets to see that ending. They'll never know if their sacrifice actually made a difference. They'll never know if the day was really saved. In the end, they just have to have faith. Ain't that a bitch?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of a bitch, I have returned.
I don't know what to say to that. Like,
You're the one who called me that, by the way, the first time.
I call you that every time we talk, in some form or manner.
You do. But you were also the first one to call me that. You were correct, but nonetheless, you were the first one to call me that. Because as you put it, I am that bitch.
Certainly helps that you are gay. So
It does help, yes.
Yeah.
It
Alright.
is contextually convenient, even though
Right.
it would get you lynched on a college campus if you were to call me that within earshot of a
One of
social
the-
justice warrior.
One of the very many reasons I don't attend college.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm glad I got out in like 2015 before all this shit went to hell. But alas, no.
Shit.
Anyway, we should get back to the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, the final trailer for it, because it comes out May 10th, right?
Mm-hmm. By the way, there's a song by a YouTuber called Dr. Random McCam called "The Rise of the Proletariat of the Apes." I'm gonna have to send that to you at some point. It's funny.
All right. Anyway, shall we?
Yes, banana, because that actually works in this one.
Banana.
Son. Your father, he waits.
What to learn?
I gotta admit, with the other trailers, the other two trailers we'd seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
This feels more like it's actually given the information of the story, right? The other two, more or less, gave story beats. It's still what's the word I'm looking
Was
for?
primarily about the atmosphere. Yeah.
Yeah, which was amazing.
Mhm.
But we're finally getting a name drop for the main character, Noah.
Mm.
But also, I like the design of everything. Like this clan or tribe or whatever they call themselves of apes. Like you just see like their culture very on display. It seems like they're falconeers or they're like they train birds, which is impressive.
Mhm.
And while it's not as photorealistic as like the prequel trilogy,
Mhm.
um, it's still really amazing how everything looks.
Yeah. To contrast it with the previous quasi live action trailer, Lion King. This is how you can do live action and still have it be stylized.
Mm. Atmosphere wise, I mean, while the others had a more grander and epic feeling, this feels more. I want to say grounded, mainly because we're seeing the more perspective from the main character.
Mhm.
You know, we're seeing his story unfold.
Mhm.
If that makes sense, like
Yeah.
uh,
Banana.
it's like, sorry, uh, banana.
Much to teach. There are dangers beyond our village.
What a wonderful
Again, this all feels very like fantasy, which obviously I think that's what they're going for.
Yeah. As well they should.
But it's
I mean,
yeah,
it's
it's pretty
too
cool.
much to hope for that there will be ape magic, but I kind of want there to be ape magic.
I'm gonna level with you, Don. I think that is a bit. I feel like not ask. I'm not saying that you're asking too much, but I think uh,
It would be cool to see though, get insofar that the apes, rediscover human culture more or less. If they started using magic, it'd be cool in like quasi fantasy medieval setting. And then
yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying,
if they end up losing it, kind of like we did, that would all it would be another interesting element to add on to the universe.
I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't be cool or interesting. I'm just saying I don't think they're smart enough to think of that.
This is
As,
true.
as,
This is true.
yeah, as cool as this is,
yeah.
and as cool. I mean, the movie still looks good. We're not trying to discredit it or anything. Just yeah, ape magic.
But
cool.
yeah, they're probably not gonna go full ape magic. They should.
Yeah.
They should, and it would be cool if they did, but they're not going to. But I remain convinced that ape magic would be cool.
Yeah.
Kind of like Shannara Chronicles or Adventure Time meets like Primeval, almost.
Shall we?
Yeah, banana.
Banana.
Help your father!
Sorry, I just I thought of I thought of something that it immediately made me want to like piss myself laughing. My brain came up with the idea of the Ape of Thrones instead of the Game of Thrones. The Ape of Thrones. Sorry.
I don't think we're the first to come up with that, but yeah, it's pretty good. Although this doesn't, this feels more in line with like high fantasy than what brand of fantasy is Game of Thrones actually?
Like dark quasi
I know
historical fantasy, probably.
I don't know. I know there's a term for it. I just can't think of it off the top of my head.
Old history.
Maybe I don't know. It might come to me later. I'm not going to focus on it.
Mhm.
But yeah, no. This all looks pretty cool. Nothing really to discuss in depth.
Banana.
Yeah, let me get to the tab. It says in 10 days. So this would have come out. It's 5 days now. So the first this trailer came out then, or the 30th,
I
April
would think.
30th. 30th. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah,
Banana?
it comes out next week, so it'll be just a week, and then we'll be able to find out how they did. Bonus points if you give me 8 magic, but you're probably not going to. Banana.
Might have some shamans or something, you know, like mystics, not magic itself, but you know, witch doctors
Again, like
something like that.
something in the vein of like Shannara Chronicles or Adventure Time meets like Primeval. The Ape of Thrones.
Anyway, banana.
Yeah,
Banana.
banana. Secret of Nim would be another good example of how they could do it, and it'd be cool.
My family. I will find them.
I gotta admit, it's impressive that how the first two trailers were again just more or less atmosphere and of the world. And while this final trailer covers more of the actual character, his journey, his story, but I'm still very thoroughly engaged. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that's rather telling how I think this movie will be pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, if the first 3 or so are any indication, it does seem like it'd be very easy to make this good. So
Although
it is good that
these were made by the guys who did the first trilogy. This is made by the guy who did like the Maze Runner trilogy and some other stuff.
yeah,
Still impressive though.
but
Uh,
I will bring them home. To survive, remember your strength, your compassion.
So the guy who's wearing the necklace, which is really interesting, that it's a necklace of like the symbol that Caesar kind of made it more or less a religious symbol among the apes. You know, the with the window he grew up living in.
Yeah.
That orangutan, which orangutans are always cool because you remember Maurice.
Mm-hmm.
So he's some type of priest or some type of religious follower.
Mm-hmm.
And it does seem like he's not a zealot or some type of, you know, because it does seem like he's following the actual teachings of Caesar in some form or fashion. You know, compassion and all that, kindness.
It'll be interesting also to see how that got Chinese whispered into a religion, because we of course know the origin being as the previous trilogy, but
Yeah.
one wonders how in a couple thousand years later that would get Chinese whispered into a religion.
I think you'd be surprised. I mean, given that Caesar was technically the Adam of the ape species as it is currently within the timeline here, he would be
Mhm.
deified at some point. And given everything
Well,
he
yeah,
did in his
it's kind of like in Cloud Atlas with Sunmi 451 becoming a goddess, kind of. But
yeah. Well,
it's
no,
just
he's also
it's just
in the
it's
original.
going to
Hold
be
on.
interesting to watch the progression from
Well,
what we
okay,
know
so
of the original events to the religification of it.
in the in the original series of movies, Caesar. I mean, granted, the situation and stuff was a lot more convoluted and a lot more. It was very different comparative to this because this is a rebooted timeline here. But I'm somewhat interested in the idea of. I mean, even then, Caesar was regarded as a some savior kind of figure because he
I
was like
think
the first.
Moses is probably a good comparison to Caesar because he kind of led his people out of bondage, so to
Yeah, I
speak.
wasn't. I mean, it still technically works within the savior uh, symbology. I was saying, like an Adam Moses mix. I would say.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, he was naturally born, right, with the thing.
hmm Well, he got the super intelligence chemical there.
Well, his mother was exposed to it while while she was pregnant with him. Thus, he was
Right. Okay. I didn't remember that aspect of it, but yeah,
right. Um,
which kind of makes him ape Jesus.
Again, I would argue Adam and Moses more so than Jesus.
Well, but the whole sacred special birth thing, I could see that becoming ape Jesus.
Yeah, possibly.
The ape equivalent of it, like Immaculate Conception.
I mean, I would assume more or less he was born naturally, obviously, but I get your point.
Well, naturally, in the context of his mother was dosed with a super intelligence chemical, which I could see that getting whispered into. He was born to an ordinary ape, but he was gifted with something by the gods, blah blah blah, and therefore.
Right. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I could see that being twisted into that narrative, but again, if we're to talk literal,
Like I said, I'm trying to kind of. The interesting part of this will be piecing together how some version of the origin that we know got Chinese whispered into a religion in
yeah,
a
that's fair.
medieval Christianity style.
That's fair. That's fair. But if we're talking literal sense, like religiously, yes, I could see him being portrayed as a Jesus figure. But if we're talking literal sense in terms of biblical characters or biblical people, I would say Adam mixed with Moses.
Mm. I mean, Samson might be a good proxy too, because he was, divinely gifted with the strength thing. So, but yeah. But
Yeah.
point being, it'll be interesting to see how the historical events that we're at least partially aware of, thanks to the previous trilogy. Because I wasn't aware that this is
I'm not
supposed
sure
to
if
be
this
a
is supposed to be
reboot. I
like
thought it was just continuation. But how those events got twisted into a religious narrative.
well, with the original Planet of the Apes movies, I think there was one where it involved time travel of like some apes that traveled back into humanity's past and stuff. Like again, it's a whole thing. So I feel like simplifying it into a reboot might be a little easier.
Well, I mean, the question is whether whether this is supposed to be more or less a continuation of the Matt Reeves trilogy, or
No, I'm
not.
fairly certain. No, I'm not talking about. I wasn't talking about this being a reboot. I was talking about like the 3 movies, the prequel trilogy, and this. That's part of a. I would assume that's part of a rebooted continuity altogether.
Yeah,
That's what I meant. I'm sorry. I did not clarify myself.
Right.
That's my fault.
right. I thought you meant that the one with the new director was supposed to be a new continuity altogether.
No.
But-
That's not what I meant. Sorry.
Okay, then I was the asshole. Never mind. But banana,
Yeah. give me a
sacred
sec.
banana.
Tab. Banana.
You know what that also reminds me of? It reminds
Your
me of
mercy.
Bippy from that one episode of Fairly Odd Parents.
All right. Banana.
Mm-hmm. Banana.
Your mercy.
Why do they hunt her?
She knows the human secrets.
I have a name. May. I know where they're taking your clothes.
Yeah. No, it's all really cool. I'm invested.
Mm-hmm.
And it is funny to me, like, because I mean we're used to talking, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of the apes with like the humans, obviously because of the virus in the 3rd film that evolved, that it started to degrade them into like their roles being
Yeah.
reversed effectively.
Back into almost an ape-like intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah. So that means there has to be some. I mean, if we're talking scientifically, at least, May
Immunity to the
is,
virus.
or at the very least, the virus has mutated again in some form that has allowed May, because it seems like it's only her currently, is a human who has
Well,
gained
that
her
could also be the
intelligence again.
trailer editing.
What do you mean?
I mean, I could easily see there being a pocket of humans who have the quote unquote forbidden knowledge.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, currently, from what we've seen of the movie, I'm not arguing that there isn't. I'm just saying what we know currently is
Mhm.
that she is the one that has a human level intelligence like the apes.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we?
Yep, banana.
Banana.
Plan.
You chose a human over an ape.
This was a human place.
It is not yours.
It is now, isn't it?
The elders did not tell us everything.
So I won't. So the weird thing is with like the prequel trilogy, with Caesar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, Koba was a great antagonist, and the Colonel, Woody Harrelson's character, I would argue was a good antagonist. First one didn't really have an antagonist, more or less.
Well, yeah, it was sort of nature itself as the antagonist there.
Yeah.
Or maybe man's hubris as the antagonist there.
I mean, there were minor antagonists, like characters that provided obstacles for the main character in his struggle. But either way,
the ones that put Caesar in the cage and incentivized the revolt to begin with.
Yeah, but either way, it's really interesting because the king ape here, Maximus, I think was his name. Is supposed to be his name.
Mhm.
Well, the actor who's playing him is having a lot of fun and is chewing his scenes well.
Mhm.
Like, I'm just saying, like, he feels like a very memorable villain
Mhm.
or antagonist or whatever you want to call him.
Mhm.
But it's weird. Like, he has the cadence of like a king, but also that feralness of an ape still.
The warlord aspect, yeah.
Yeah. I won't say. I will say, like from all the trailers, when we saw him, God, was he like such a presence? Just
Yeah.
so
Ape
honestly,
Caligula.
I hope they don't kill him off. Like he kind of stays a threat throughout the whole. I would assume this is a trilogy, or planned to be at least. Just because he's so fucking entertaining. Like, it's like one of those villains. You know, he's that kind of villain that you just love to watch, just because he's having.
I can see where you're coming from with that, although if there's gonna be another one, I would want another time skip. Like to see the ape society develop more. Like this is the
Well,
you
okay.
know,
So,
fantasy medieval version of ape society. What
that's okay. That's fair.
you
Um,
know, ape renaissance look like?
that's fair. My reason why is because you got the trilogy for the prequel series. I would assume for the medieval fantasy thing, it would be a trilogy as well. And honestly, I would kind of like to see like a like Arthurian myth ape style, like Planet of the Apes style, like because it does seem like Noah is kind of falling into that like protagonist kind of role, that rising hero mythos.
Mm.
This feels very mythological. I will argue.
Mhm.
Um, so he could be kind of like a King Arthur stand-in, and I
Mhm.
don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want to see ape knights, like ape in knight armor of some kind.
Yeah, that might be cool, but you could do pretty much that whole thing in one movie though. You wouldn't need a trilogy to do that, I don't think. And then you could
I'm just
skip
saying if
ahead
we
to a
got
different
look. I'm
era.
just saying if we had. I'm just saying we had it. We had one trilogy for one central character that was Caesar, and we're introducing this new character. I'm saying it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a trilogy centralized around him and like his rise and possibly even fall. If we're
Right, but this is also the one that's called Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So like maybe Enlightenment of the Planet of the Apes would be next, like with the Renaissance type thing. And then like Age of the Planet of the Apes with like a more modern type setting. What I'm picturing is a trilogy based on time skips, so we can see like the different generations of apes and the like development of their society, more or less. I'm not. It's one of those aspects of our differences because you're focused on characters, I'm focused on world again.
banana.
Banana.
About this world.
Nor bend for your king.
Never.
Get tickets now.
Again, doesn't look bad. It looks awesome.
I'm
Usually
interested
after
to see what they do.
like it's weird. Like with the prequel trilogy, usually you have like one or two good movies, but all three movies were fantastic. And then you
Yeah.
have a series set after that, or a movie set after that, and usually those movies
Yeah.
don't do well. But this looks
Yeah.
looks like people are actually really trying to make a good movie. You know,
Yep.
doesn't feel like a cash in. Granted, the hold on, when did War come out? Actually, I'm curious.
War for the Planet of the Apes was, I want to say, like 2012, I think.
2017.
Shit, I'm old.
No, I think Rise of the Planet of the Apes came out in 2012.
I thought that was 2009.
2011.
Fuck me. I'm old. And then,
And Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was 2014, so that's 10 years old.
okay, so, yeah. I'm old.
That's been well established, Dalton.
Someday you too will be old, god damn it.
But never older than you.
Well, until my health issues kill me off, but that's
But, yeah, it's weird. Like, so far within, I guess we'll argue it's the rebooted universe of the rebooted Planet of the Apes series.
I just call it the prequel universe. I don't see any reason why it couldn't still be in continuity with the other ones.
I'm
the most
fairly
part,
certain.
anyway.
I'm fairly certain there are reasons, though. To be fair, I never really want to see originals. These are my, like, the prequel movies are kind of been my Planet of the Apes.
When I think of Planet of the Apes, I think of the one Tim Burton did.
Again, it's just that our age difference, I think, is because how we view stuff.
Yeah, but in any case,
I was again. I'm just. It's surprising how like there really have not really been any bad movies from this series. You know.
yeah, I can't speak for the original set either, but so far I haven't seen a bad one. People for some reason really dislike the Tim Burton one, and I don't understand why. But in any case, outro time probably.
Yeah, with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom and fuck off, you dirty apes.